Season 1 of The Witcher follows Geralt of Rivia, the titular Witcher. Witchers are once normal humans who were ruthlessly conditioned and experimented on to create perfect monster-slaying hunters. Witchers possess many heightened abilities like enhanced senses, speed, and strength, and can perform minor magical spells. Geralt, alongside his trusty steed Roach, is traveling the continent and using his Witcher skills to take up various bounties and quests. Along his journeys, he crosses paths with several notable figures, like the mage Triss Marigold and Jaskier the Bard, who, much to Geralt's annoyance, accompanies the Witcher on several quests and even writes a song about him. When Geralt and Jaskier attend a feast for Princess Pavetta, the daughter of Queen Calanthe of Cintra, things get a bit complicated. A cursed knight named Duny arrives to ask for Pavetta's hand in marriage. With his lowly status and cursed hedgehog-like features, Queen Calanthe turns him away despite Pavetta's profession of love. When a fight ensues and Pavetta unleashes her magical abilities in anger, Geralt steps in to resolve the situation. A reluctant Calanthe agrees to allow Pavetta and Duny to marry, and as a thanks, Duny offers Geralt the Law of Surprise, which would grant Geralt something Duny owns but does not yet know about. And that's when it's revealed that Pavetta is pregnant with Duny's child. That child, to be named Ciri, is now forever entwined with Geralt's destiny, whether he liked it or not. Geralt leaves Cintra, assuring the royal family he wants nothing to do with claiming the new princess, and continues on his witching ways. Meanwhile, Yennefer is a young woman with severe physical deformities who is an outcast of both her village and her family. Her father sells her to the mage Geralt of Rivia, who takes Yennefer to her school in Aretuza to train her to become a mage. As Yennefer grows more powerful in her magic, she also gains more confidence in herself and even secretly begins a love affair with the sorcerer Istrid. Upon the initiate's graduation day, the new mages are to be assigned to separate kingdoms to advise the ruler. When Yennefer is assigned to Nilfgaard instead of her home in Aedirn, she refuses to attend initiation and discovers she was assigned Nilfgaard due to being a quarter elf, a secret she had only told Istrid. Elves are a persecuted race throughout the kingdom and have nearly gone extinct due to genocide. Upon confronting Istrid over his betrayal, he confesses that he had told the mischievous mage Stregobor about Yennefer's lineage, who in turn persuaded the mage chapter to assign her to Nilfgaard. Istrid promises to do everything in his power to right his wrong, but it is too late. Yennefer has missed her initiation. And so, Yennefer pays a visit to the enchanter, who uses magic to make her beautiful, but at the cost of her fertility. The now reborn Yennefer crashes the Aretuzan ball and charms the Aedirn king into making her his mage. And so, Tissaia sends the mage Fringilla to Nilfgaard instead. As the years pass, Yennefer shirks her mage duties and grows bitter over having her fertility taken from her. As she desperately searches for a way to have a child, she crosses paths with the adventuring Geralt and Jaskier. When Geralt and Jaskier stumble upon a djinn, a genie-like creature that grants its master 3 wishes, Yennefer intervenes and wants the wishes for herself to wish for her fertility back. Geralt realizes the djinn will kill Yennefer and intervenes, making his own secret wish and causing the djinn to leave. Yennefer is upset but finds comfort in Geralt, and the two enter into a romance. But when it's later revealed that Geralt's wish bound his and Yennefer's fates, she begins to doubt whether her feelings for him are real or magic, and chooses to leave him. This causes a hurt Geralt to lash out at Jaskier, telling the bard he never wants to see him again. By this point, years have passed and Princess Pavetta and Duny have been lost at sea, leaving the now teenage Princess Ciri to be raised by her grandmother, Queen Calanthe. The political power of Cintra has become dire, and the kingdom of Nilfgaard is sending an army to invade. Fearing for Ciri's life, Geralt returns to Cintra to invoke the Law of Surprise, begging Queen Calanthe to allow him to protect the princess. But Calanthe refuses and has Geralt imprisoned. And that's when the Nilfgaardian army attacks Cintra, who are no match for invading forces. Geralt escapes from his cell as Cintra devolves into chaos. Queen Calanthe and her husband Iced are killed, but before succumbing to her wounds, Calanthe tells Ciri to find Geralt. And so the young Ciri flees from her home in the search of Geralt of Rivia. In pursuit of Ciri are the Nilfgaardian commander Cahir and the sorceress Fringilla. On Ciri's journey, she befriends an elven boy named Dara and the Dryad people of Broccolin Forest. Yennefer returns to Aretuza, where the Mage Brotherhood are holding a vote to determine whether or not they should intervene in Nilfgaard's invasion, fearing that once they capture Cintra, they would move on to all of the other northern kingdoms. Stregobor leads the majority into voting for the Brotherhood to remain neutral, but Yennefer joins a small faction of mages that includes Tissaia, Triss Merigold, and Vilgefortz in traveling to Cintra to push back the Nilfgaardian army. At first, it appears that the mages' attempts to hold off the Nilfgaardian army are futile, and Vilgefortz even reveals himself to be a traitor. But just as all hope seems lost, Yennefer unleashes the full breath of the chaos magic inside of her, incinerating the invading forces with a giant blast of fire before mysteriously vanishing. With the battle seemingly over but a war very much beginning, an injured Geralt stumbles through the forest and at long last finds Ciri, their fates finally bringing them together. In Season 2 of The Witcher, Geralt brings his new ward Ciri to the Witcher fortress Kaer Morhen. While there, Geralt reunites with his fellow Witchers, including his old mentor Vesemir, and begins training Ciri in the ways of the Witcher so she will be better prepared to protect herself. And this proves to be very necessary, as many new dangerous monsters begin to appear. During their training, Geralt discovers that Ciri may have inherited some of her mother's magical abilities, and invites the sorceress Triss Merigold to Kaer Morhen to train Ciri in magic. Geralt then meets with Yennefer's former lover Istrid, who explains that the rise in new monsters throughout the continent can be linked to mysterious monoliths erected throughout the world. Meanwhile, Vesemir discovers that Ciri has elder blood, a long extinct ingredient in mutagens used to create witchers. Ciri agrees to allow Vesemir to use her blood to create more witchers as long as he makes her a witcher first. When Geralt returns from his visit with Istrid, he denies Ciri's transformation. With Triss's help, they discover that Ciri's ancestor Ithilin was an elf who prophesied a descendant with elder blood that would bring about the end of the world. Fearing for Ciri's fate, Geralt takes her from Kaer Morhen to deliver her to the Temple of Melitel, where he hopes she will learn to control her powers and avoid the prophecy. Along the way, Geralt and Ciri are attacked by a monster, which kills Geralt's trusty steed Roach. Meanwhile, though she is presumed dead by her closest allies, Yennefer has lost her magic and is taken captive by Fringilla and the retreating Nilfgaardians. But it's only a matter of time before both sorceresses are taken captive by a group of elves. Led by an elven sorceress named Francesca, the elves hope that Yennefer and Fringilla can be used to help them regain power throughout the continent. The three sorceresses then visit the mysterious Deathless Mother, who promises to grant each of them what they most desire. Fringilla and Francesca then travel to Cintra and forge an alliance between the elves and Nilfgaard to once again declare war on the northern kingdoms. The Deathless Mother grants Francesca's greatest desire, resulting in her giving birth to the first full-blooded elf in years. Yennefer distrusts the Deathless Mother and abandons her companions, instead returning to Aretuza. There she reunites with Tissaia, but is put on trial by Stregobor and the Brotherhood, who falsely accuse her of working with Nilfgaard. To prove her loyalty, Yennefer is ordered to execute the captured Nilfgaardian soldier Cahir. Feeling betrayed by her fellow sorcerers, Yennefer instead frees Cahir and goes on the run. In Yennefer's absence, Tissaia has begun a relationship with Vilgefortz. Unaware that he had betrayed the mages in the battle against Nilfgaard, Tissaia confides in him that Triss has confirmed Ciri's possession of elder blood. Cahir then returns to Cintra, where the alliance between Nilfgaardians and the elves is already faltering. As Fringilla begins to lose clout amongst her fellow Nilfgaardians, she decides to murder several generals and force Cahir to support her with Nilfgaardian Emperor Ramir in an effort to elevate her standing. Following the birth of Francesca's baby, the elves begin to prioritize rebuilding their people over joining Nilfgaard in battle. This concerns the Nilfgaardians, as the northern kingdom of Redania, led by King Vesemir and his spymaster Dijkstra, are plotting to take back Cintra. In turn, the Nilfgaardians assassinate Francesca's baby. Thinking the northern kingdoms were responsible, Francesca and the elves rejoin the Nilfgaardian cause and attack Redania. Meanwhile, a mysterious and villainous fire mage named Rience is tasked with capturing Ciri. Knowing she was last seen with Geralt, Rience begins hunting the Witcher's old friend Jaskier for information. Rience also teleports to Kaer Morhen to steal the Witcher mutagen for himself. Jaskier gets some help from Yennefer in evading Rience, but the sorceress knows she is of little use without her magic, and so she returns to the Deathless Mother, who reveals that Yennefer can restore her magical abilities by bringing Ciri to a monolith. Yennefer tracks Ciri Ciri to the temple, unaware that the child she sought was in the care of her former lover Geralt. As the two reunite, Riot arrives and attacks the temple. While Geralt faces off against the fire mage and his men, Yennefer takes Ciri and flees. Geralt is distraught over Yennefer betraying him and taking Ciri, and seeks out Jaskier for help. The Witcher apologizes to his annoying bard friend for his previous cruel behavior, and together they race to stop Yennefer. When Jaskier tells Geralt that Yennefer has lost her magic, the Witcher realizes that she is doing the bidding of the Deathless Mother, an ancient demon known as Volethmir that feeds on pain that the Witchers had imprisoned thousands of years ago. As Yennefer and Ciri travel to the monolith, the women bond and Yennefer begins to regret using the child just to gain her powers back. As they reach the monolith, Yennefer decides to not betray Ciri, although that's exactly when Geralt arrives to confront his former lover. As Jaskier takes Ciri back to Kaer Morhen, Geralt and Yennefer go to confront Volethmir. Unfortunately, they discover that the demon has fed on Francesca's grief, giving it enough power to escape its imprisonment and possess Ciri. At Kaer Morhen, the possessed Ciri opens a portal and begins summoning monsters from another world. Geralt and Yennefer arrive and join the Witchers in defeating the monsters and saving the fortress. Yennefer, regretting her past misdeeds, agrees to sacrifice herself and save Ciri by becoming the demon's new host. Ciri then uses her powers to transport herself, Geralt, and the possessed Yennefer to Volethmir's homeworld. There, the demon leaves Yennefer and recreates its original body, joining an army known as the Wild Hunt, who seek to harness Ciri's elder blood. Ciri, Geralt, and Yennefer then teleport back to Kaer Morhen to escape the Wild Hunt. Yennefer discovers that she has regained her magic and decides to join Geralt in protecting Ciri. But it's not only the Wild Hunt that wants to capture Ciri. The Northern Kingdoms want her dead for being the heir to Cintra's throne. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers want her dead to avert the apocalyptic prophecy. Francesca and the elves want to capture her to ensure the prophecy happens in an act of vengeance against humans. And then there's the Nilfgaardians, whose Emperor Emir finally arrives in Cintra. As the season comes to a close, Emir is revealed to be Ciri's long-missing father Duny, now a villainous ruler hell-bent on finding his daughter. In Season 3 of The Witcher, Geralt and Yennefer have gone on the run with Ciri to protect her from all of those who wish her harm. Along their journey, Yennefer begins teaching Ciri how to use magic, while also hoping to prove to Geralt that he can trust her once again. As the villainous and cutthroat mage Rience continues hunting Ciri, Geralt decides to turn the tables to hunt him, while Yennefer takes Ciri to Aretuza for protection. While on the journey to Aretuza, Ciri begins to experience dark visions of the future, which she is determined to change. In Aretuza, Yennefer reunites with Tissaia, who is still in a relationship with Vilgefortz and unaware of his traitorous ways. Yennefer and Tissaia want to hold a conclave of mages to ensure that the Brotherhood no longer stays neutral in continent conflicts, but instead takes action to prevent all-out war. Ciri is disillusioned by the Brotherhood and resents Yennefer for placing her trust in them, and so Ciri runs away. But as she does, she is pursued by the Wild Hunt, and nearly caught before Geralt arrives to save her. Meanwhile, Triss Merigold grows concerned when several of her young mage students at Aretuza go missing. Istrid is searching for the ancient Book of Monoliths and believes that whoever possesses the book may be responsible for the missing novices, who all happen to be half-elves. Elsewhere in Redania, King Vizimir plots to find and marry Ciri as part of his plan to take control of Cintra from the Nilfgaardians. When his spy master Dijkstra and court mage Philippa Eilhart fail to locate Ciri, Vizimir turns to his brother Prince Radovid for aid. Radovid tries to convince Jaskier into helping them apprehend Ciri, but instead, the pair develop a mutual attraction for one another. As Dijkstra and Philippa grow frustrated by Vizimir's leadership, they murder the king's wife and send him her head, framing Nilfgaard as the killer. Radovid discovers this treasonous act, but Dijkstra threatens him to ensure his silence and loyalty. Following Emperor Emir's return to Nilfgaard, he punishes Cahir and Fringilla for their failures. Fringilla is imprisoned, though she fakes her death to escape. Meanwhile, Cahir is demoted and ashamed, left desperate to regain his status as an honored knight of the Emperor. Francesca remains determined to find Ciri to fulfill Ithalin's prophecy, hoping that from the destroyed world, the elves could rebuild a new home for themselves in peace. Gallatin, the leader of the elvish guerrilla fighting group the Scoia'tael, wants to ignore the prophecy and build a home for their people in the world as it currently is. And so Gallatin abandons Francesca and reunites with his old friend Cahir, who asks him to ensure that the Scoia'tael support Emir's plot to have Nilfgaard control the entire north, in exchange for Gallatin being installed as the new leader of the elves instead of Francesca. Emir is impressed by Cahir's actions, but to prove his loyalty and subservience, the Emperor forces Cahir to murder his friend Gallatin, and instead offer Francesca and her elves protection under Nilfgaardian rule. Geralt and Ciri then reunite with Jaskier to return to Aretuza together. Upon arriving in Aretuza, the trio discover that Yennefer has successfully called for a conclave of mages, and a massive ball is held to celebrate the event. Mages from across the continent arrive for the party, including Philippa Eilhart, accompanied by both Dijkstra and Radovid. Secretly, Dijkstra and Philippa plot to stage a coup against the mages, who desire to remain neutral in the war for control of the northern kingdoms. When Radovid and Jaskier are reunited, they profess their romantic feelings for each other and share a kiss. At the ball, Triss and Istrid seek the help of Geralt and Yennefer to uncover the traitorous mage targeting half-elf novices. The group finds the Book of Monoliths and the possessions of the missing students in the care of Stregobor, who denies any wrongdoing and claims that he has been framed. Geralt and Yennefer confirm Stregobor's claims, discovering that Vilgefortz was the true villain, working on behalf of Emperor Emir and having hired Ryance to capture Ciri, while also performing mysterious experiments on the half-elf novices that left them all dead. His villainy exposed, Vilgefortz helps the Nilfgaardians and Scoia'tael armies enter Aretuza to capture Ciri and slaughter the mages who refuse to bend the knee to Emperor Emir. Leading the charge is Cahir, accompanied by Francesca and her husband Filavandrel. Amidst the battle, a devastated Tissaia finally realizes that her lover Vilgefortz is a traitor. Tissaia manages to kill Filavandrel, while Stregobor seeks redemption by sacrificing himself to hold back the Nilfgaardian forces. But despite this, the soldiers loyal to Emperor Emir dominate the fight, slaughtering most of the mages. Yennefer tries to protect Ciri from the bloodshed, but Ryance arrives to attack her once again. Thankfully, Geralt arrives to kill Ryance and reunite with his lover and their surrogate daughter. As Yennefer races to save Tissaia from certain death, Geralt and Ciri flee. On the battlefield, Cahir reunites with his old ally Fringilla, who has chosen to align with the elves instead of blindly following Emperor Emir. This causes Cahir to reflect on his own callous actions in service of the Emperor, including murdering his friend Gallatin. And so, when Geralt and Ciri are overwhelmed by Scoia'tael forces, Cahir chooses to help them escape. Vilgefortz then confronts Geralt, defeating him and leaving him for dead before pursuing the fleeing Ciri. Vilgefortz chases Ciri into the Tower of Tor Lara, where she uses her powers on a monolith, causing a massive magical explosion that destroys the tower, with Vilgefortz and Ciri still inside it. Ciri is teleported to the middle of the Korath Desert, where she is plagued by visions of the long-dead quarter-elf warrior princess Falka. Falka encourages Ciri to embrace the full breadth of the powers within her and take control of her own destiny. Ciri is tempted by Falka's corruption, but ultimately chooses to give up her powers for the sake of the greater good. Unfortunately, as Ciri finally reaches the end of the desert, she is captured by a mysterious attacker. In the aftermath of the battle, Geralt is found and saved by Triss, who takes him to the Dryads of Brocklin Forest to recover. Jaskier admonishes Radovid, believing he had sexually manipulated him purely to try to apprehend Ciri to bolster Redania's power. Jaskier then heads off to find Geralt, warning him that word was beginning to spread that Ciri had been captured and was being transported to Nilfgaard at that very moment. And so, Geralt, Jaskier, and the Dryad archer Milva race to save the princess. Francesca and Fringilla visit Emir, who reveals his plan to use the Scoia'tael elves on the front lines of the war, essentially serving as a death sentence. This infuriates Fringilla, who plots to capture Ciri and have her use her magic to transport the elves to a new home, away from the evil clutches of man. But Francesca contemplates remaining loyal to Emir to ensure her own protection. This causes Fringilla to angrily rebuke Francesca and reveal that she had been responsible for the murder of Francesca's baby on Emir's orders. And so, a distraught Francesca swears vengeance on both Fringilla and Emir. Dijkstra and Philippa return to Redania, revealing their failures in the Battle of Aretuza to King Vizimir. When Vizimir tries to have Philippa killed as punishment, she instead kills the king, making Radovid the new ruler of Redania. Tissaia is overcome with grief from being blind to Vilgefortz's villainy and the loss of so many of her novices. When Yennefer discovers Tissaia's dead body, she chooses to step up as the new leader of the Brotherhood to vengefully defeat Vilgefortz. As the season comes to a close, Emperor Emir welcomes the return of his daughter Ciri to Nilfgaard, though in truth, this supposed Ciri is actually Terran, the lone surviving half-elf novice that Vilgefortz's experiments had successfully mind-controlled. The real Ciri has actually been captured by bounty hunters, though is saved by a bandit group known as the Rats. As the bandits accept Ciri amongst their ranks, she brutally murders her captor and introduces herself as Falca.